All right.
You're
listening
to RadioLab.
Hey, I'm Jad Abumrad.
I'm Robert Krulwich.
This is RadioLab,
the podcast.
And today on the podcast,
Jad Abumrad and Robert Krulwich are both the original hosts of the radio program called RadioLab.
RadioLab came about in a really interesting time in public radio. There's about a 5-year period on either side of the turn of the 20th century where a number of shows that are still broadcast today got broadcast for the first time, and RadioLab is part of that.
I would call Jad Abumrad a Renaissance man, if you will.
From 2002 to 2010, I did hundreds of these stories. Science-y, neuroscience-y, very heady, brainy stories that would always resolve into that feeling of wonder.
He looks at science, he looks at history, he looks at human events, and he takes these big events and somehow he is able to translate those into simple stories that have universal appeal. Robert Krulwich, as a storyteller, as a journalist, is one of the most decorated journalists in our recent memory.
There is more room now to explore new ways to talk about complex subjects, to do it at greater lengths, to go deeper, to get more subtle, because
he wasn't the original host of RadioLab, but came in as a co-host about 2 years after the creation of the program. Robert and Jad have created a kind of chemistry. They might be the original bromance.
RadioLab is fascinating to me because it's edited in a totally different way than you would normally edit a broadcast program.
You ready, Robert?
Mm-hmm.
It is heavily edited, hundreds and hundreds of edits per show.
We described the last episode of the TV show MASH.
It's wartime.
There's an enemy patrol coming down the road.
But the goal is that you actually hear some of the edits.
Today on RadioLab, we are... Well, I actually don't even know what we're doing. I know we're revisiting some old question, but you've kept me in the dark. So what are we doing today?
The way they do collaborative interviews on the show with their guests is fascinating because they come at it from different ways and they want to know different things.
And you may remember...
Wait a second, Krulwich.
You remember this, like in the morality show?
Sure. I mean, Josh was the guy with the moral puzzles.
They take topics that we think we know.
3, 2, 1.
Colors, sounds, stuff that would just seem to be very, very basic. And they break it down in a totally different way. Imagine what got left on the cutting room floor. Probably a whole lot of stuff.
RadioLab, represented here today by Jad Abumrad and Robert Krulwich, is most deserving of a Missouri Honor Medal because of the many ways that it makes science, history, politics, and the world more understandable to a mass audience.
I think Jad and Robert are Missouri Honor Medal worthy because they came along at a time in public radio history where it needed a boost, and they gave it in a big way. Storytelling today, through podcasts, through non-narrative forms of storytelling, I think you can draw a direct line back to what Jad and Robert did with RadioLab, and you can say, I see the precursors of how we're telling stories now, 30 years after they started the program, is absolutely Honor Medal worthy.